What's your name, sir?
Zhenhao.
Pardon?
Zhenhao.
And your surname? I'm arresting you on suspicion of rape, okay? Because it is alleged that on the 14th of November last year, you have vaginally raped a female at this address, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Your arrest is necessary for a prompt and effective investigation, okay? Let me finish. Your time of arrest is now 1:53.
On the surface, he seemed ambitious, charming, and highly intelligent, but beneath the polished exterior was a calculated predator. Named one of the most prolific criminals in recent UK history, Zhenhao Zou was only recently caught and finally taken off the streets. Today, we uncover the chilling case of a PhD student turned serial rapist whose crimes spanned 2 countries, dozens of victims, and a horrifying 4-year timeline. Zhao's glamorous facade, designer clothes, luxury rent, and elite degrees hid a man who saw women not as people, but as possessions. You might have heard about this case, especially if you're living in the UK, and the court papers are public, so I read through all the pages, and it details into the sick life of Zhao and what he did to each victim. And it's really interesting because the judges and the prosecutor in this case, all of them call him this charming, intelligent guy. And I thought that this case was so important, especially for females, young females, to watch this video. Because I'm telling you, when a man seems too good to be true, especially if you're out there on the dating apps and it's, he has a fancy Rolex, fancy car, and apartment, sometimes just ask yourself, the story that he's giving you, does it seem too good to be true? And today's case also highlights why it was so hard for the victims to come forward, even after dozens of victims of Zhao, and it took people years and only one person to open up this case. But why did the female victims not come forward? To continue GRAZY TV and to continue reporting on these important cases, remember to subscribe, leave a comment down below of your thoughts on today's case, and just a like in this video all means a lot. So today's suspect, his name is Zhenhao Zou. He's a 28-year-old man from Dongguan, China. He was born in February 20th, 1997. He moved to the UK in 2017 to study in Belfast, attended UCL, or University College of London, for a master's degree. He continued at UCL for a PhD starting in 2021. And again, throughout the case, prosecutors and the judges call him a charming, intelligent man. So clearly, this guy has a pretty great academic intelligence. Zhao was also known to go back and forth from China to UK. I guess during school breaks, he would go back to China and then come back to study in the UK. Now, he was rumored to have come from a pretty wealthy family, a well-off background. I guess his parents are doing very well in China. It is unknown what his parents actually do. He was able to afford designer clothing, a Rolex, he even got a hair transplant, and lived in an upscale South London rent that was about £4,000 a month. We all know foreign exchange students or, foreign students from another country, it costs a lot to go to school. You do not have any grants, but you have to afford everything, right? So I don't think Zhao was the one affording all of this, because how do you go to school and part-time job and pay for a expensive rent? So at the end of the day, it seemed like it wasn't even Zhao's money, it was his parents' money that he was living off of. Zhao had an online name and he was known as Paco online. Not sure what Paco means. I don't know if that's like a Chinese anime character or what Paco means in Chinese, but if you guys are Chinese, let me know what Paco means. It's like a special code. So this is how Zhao would get his female victims. He would specifically befriend Chinese students from China that was living in the UK studying just like him. Now, he used an app called WeChat, which is like WhatsApp for mostly Chinese people, Little Red Book, which I believe is like TikTok for Chinese version, and various dating apps. And he would invite them specifically to drink at his luxury apartment or also study. He would have these study session that was mixed with drinking. Now, he targeted mainly, like I said, female Chinese students. Now, to these young women, it kind of sounded too good to be true, right? There's an older, in Korean we would say like an oppa figure, an older guy figure who is also on his way to PhD. He's intelligent. It seems like he has money, and he's inviting me to his house to have these study sessions. We all know, especially when a man has money, has a nice apartment and a Rolex, that can be very like persuading. I'm sure to them on the outside, Zhao seemed like a good potential, a good catch. Now, whenever these girls would come over for these study sessions, there would always be drinking involved. And so they would be studying, and Zhao would take out his vodka and be like, all right, well, let's get to know each other a little better. Let's get a little loose. Let's have some drinking while we're studying or after study. Now, in the beginning, police were able to find at least 10 victims that they can use to convict him. And all of them say that very heavy drinking was involved. And we would know this because there would be hidden cameras and Zhao would film all of this. So Zhao would be pressuring these girls to continue drinking after drink after a drink. And the girls would get pretty heavily intoxicated, but not enough, which is why Zhao had something very illegal stashed in his apartment, which was a substance called butanidol, which is a chemical that is used for various things, but one of the uses is used for relaxant. It is actually a very apparently common date drug that you might find at clubs. It is also colorless and odorless, so if somebody slipped it into your drink, you might not even notice it. So the girls could have been going to the bathroom, or whenever she was looking at her phone, or he might be preparing a cocktail drink for you, and he would slip some into their drinks and they would continue drinking. Now, shortly after, of course, the victims would go unconscious, not knowing that their drink was spiked. This is when Zhao would take the victims into his bedroom, undress them. We know what happens next. And the sickest part is he would film all of this. There would be hidden cameras, he would use his phone, various methods, and later police would find actually over 1,600 hours of footages, illegal footages that he filmed, again, without consent. All of the evidence, all of the 1,600 hours of video was women unconscious. There's a lot of details that I can't say in this video, but if you do read the court papers, you will know into details of what actually happened. And police say in some of the videos, the victims would wake up, become conscious to what was happening, and a lot of the times the women were saying no. Clearly, you could tell them saying, no, please stop. What are you doing? They would refuse, tell him how much it hurts, and unfortunately, they didn't have enough strength to push him off. In one of the videos, Zhao is also seen saying to the victim, "It's futile or useless to fight me off." Another victim was seen calling for her mother as she was very disoriented while this was happening. Zhao was also known to not ever use protection when he was doing these illegal activities, which is disgusting. So this guy, Zhao, seemed like he had everything on the outside, money, intelligence, but on the inside, he was a disgusting man with disgusting fantasies. Not even using protection, he didn't give a flying F about what happened to these victims at all. It was all about himself, his ego. Police say that the evidence goes back to 2019. They believe this was the first victim or when he started doing this for the first time, but God knows he could have done this way before that. We just don't have the evidence of it. And the very first time it was reported to the police was in 2023, November of 2023. So around 4 or 5 years in. And the craziest part is that he didn't just do this to women in the UK. He did this in China when he would go back and forth from his studies. So police are sure that there's many other victims as well in China. So it seems like nobody reported him there either. But it just goes to show you that there were so many victims within the span of 4 years, yet it took them that long for only one person to step up. All the other, they believe around 60 victims are out there of Zhao, did not come forward. And even this victim who came forward in November of 2023, she redacted it shortly afterwards and went online to talk about how traumatized she was and how Zhao was such a bad person. And I believe the police was able to convince her to press charges once again, which she did. But it goes to show you how it's not easy to report these things. And part of it could be because he targeted Chinese students, because most of these students aren't UK citizens. Maybe they don't speak perfect English, or even if they did, because it's not your country, it's just hard to report these things, especially if I lived in another country, like I would feel less inclined to report things that they happened. Not only that, it goes into the guilt and victim mentality. So remember, most of these girls, met him online, went there for study sessions and drinking sessions, and sometimes the victims might be like, well, I did come to his house willingly. I mean, I didn't give him consent to what happened there, but it's like a blurred line sometimes. You feel this guilt of like, even though he peer pressured you to drink, like I technically said yes to drinking and I blacked out. Like maybe I gave him consent when I was blacked out. I don't know. These victims don't remember that part. So you wake up feeling immensely faulting the other person, the suspect, but at the same time feeling guilty, like, man, maybe I did give consent. Like, am I even allowed to report this? Like, it feels horrible, but I'm not sure if I gave him consent or not. And like, maybe I will put somebody in jail when I did give him consent. Like, so it just becomes this weird victim mentality mode. You start to blame yourself. You start to second question. Did I do something wrong? Like, because I drank as well. Like, I'm not sure. Like, Zhao seems like he has some money. Like, what if, he is not convicted and he comes back to me and there's rumors about what happened to me? What if the tapes, like he releases the tapes online, and it's not always a clear answer of, yes, I can come forward with this. Finally, on January 2024, Zhao was arrested and was filmed all on camera.
What's your name, sir? Zhenhao. Pardon? Zhenhao.
And your surname?
Yes, come on.
And your surname?
Family name, Zou.
Pardon?
Zou.
You got any ID on you at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you show me your ID, please, just so we can confirm who you are? That doesn't. Is there anybody else in?
I thought it was done.
Sorry? Say that again?
I remember mom's.
Okay, sir, I'm arresting you on suspicion of rape, okay? Because it is alleged that on the 14th of November last year, you have vaginally raped a female at this address, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given.
Police searched his apartments and they found illegal substance that he used to spike the drinks. But on top of that, he kept trophies. Meaning he kept little items from each of the victims that he did this to, and it was like this trophy box that he had. So he kept the girl's hairband, sock, jewelry. He even tried to keep some of the women's undergarments. I think it was his like little sick way of keeping power and control over the victims and having this gratification of keeping little items from them, like, ooh, I did this to them. There's a video of him being interrogated for the first time, and a lot of people are like, why does he have an interpreter? Like how is he getting his PhD, like attending a university in UK and still need a translator for these things?
This includes the two from your phone that we discussed with you upon your last arrest.
就其中包括8条里面，其中包括2条，我们上一次跟你说过的那个强奸女孩子的录像。
As they've said, some of the things seized include 2 hard drives of over 2 terabytes each.
还有什么2个 hard drive， 好像这些电子器械都在我们那里。
How many videos do you have?
你总共有多少条片呢？拍的？
No comments.
How many victims are there?
有多少个受害人？
No comments.
When police asked about what was happening in the tapes, Zhao would say that they were just role playing and the women knew what they were doing. But also, I believe Zhao later on did confess that he needed to have the women unconscious because that was part of his fantasies that he liked. They also had to go through over 9 million messages between, like I said, they believe there's about 60 plus victims that are out there, which is so many messages because I don't even know if I have 9 million messages between all of my friends. Like, that is a lot. Now, in total, police were able to find 24 victims. But again, there's many other victims that are out there that did not come forward yet. Again, because some of them are not in the UK, they're in China. And I hope that people report him in China because there is a chance that he might get out even years later in the UK. And when he's deported back to China, I hope that he goes back into prison. So on March 5th, 2025, he was convicted on 28 counts, including 11 counts of rape, 1 count of false imprisonment, 3 counts of possession of drugs with intent to 10 counts of possessing extreme adult content, 3 counts of voyeurism. And this is what some of the victims said during trial. Victim Z said, "The humiliation of being stripped of dignity, treated as nothing more than an object for your gratification haunts me. Words cannot express my pain. I blamed myself. Even now, years later, the memories trigger migraines and make me physically ill. I will never forgive you." Victim D says, "When I woke up after what you did to me, I knew something was terribly wrong. I was haunted by nightmares, too afraid to be alone in the dark. I began self-harming to deal with the pain. Now that I know you filmed it, I live in fear those images will resurface." Victim X says, "My fragile mental health was shattered. I couldn't sleep. I was overwhelmed by anxiety, hallucination, and flashback. I lost my ability to trust people. I became isolated. I was trolled online just for warning others. Your actions rocked me to my core. I still feel guilt, even though you feel none." And on June 19th, 2025, Zhao was finally sentenced at Inner London Crown Court. He was sentenced to life, but with a minimum of 24 years. So in 24 years, he can apply for parole, meaning with good behavior, he literally could be out. The judge in this case said, "The victims were treated like pieces in an elaborate game, demonstrating a twisted desire for power and control. Police are asking for more victims to come forward. That's the only way that he can be put into trial again and hopefully be sentenced for actually life instead of only 24 years, which will be 2048, and he's only gonna be in his 60s. He could come out and do this again. Again, you guys, for young girls and boys, if you're going out meeting people online, even if it wasn't even online, whenever things sound too good to be true, always question it, especially if you go to someone's house that you don't know and they're peer pressuring you to drink. That is not a good sign. I've been there. I remember when I was young, I didn't have a lot of dating experience, and I went to this guy's house. This happened in Korea because he was, famous. He was a celebrity. He seemed like he had a good, nice car and nice apartments. And I willingly went over there when he invited me. I thought that, I had a chance to be romantically involved with somebody that had money and fame. And he tried to pressure me to sleep with him. I clearly said no, but even though I was in my 20s, just because I was an adult, it still didn't mean that I knew what was going to happen and that this was all that this guy wanted. Now, thank God no drinking was involved and I said no and nothing happened. But it got me thinking, well, I went to his house willingly because he invited me. Did I give him the wrong impression? Maybe it was my fault. I willingly went to this guy's house, decided to spend the night there. He clearly was expecting something when I didn't. I felt guilty that maybe I did give him the wrong impression and it was my fault. Just because you like a guy and they seem like the perfect person on the outside, if they like you, they will take you on a proper date. They're not gonna bring you to their house and peer pressure you to drink. And most importantly, do not judge a book by its cover. Just because somebody has a nice car, nice apartment, and they even have a PhD and going to a nice school, look at their heart, look at their true intentions, and get to know the person for a long time. Because I know, especially as a woman, you can fall for the glitz and glamour on the outside when on the inside, like this guy Zhao, he was rotten. I've been in relationships where I fell for the money on the outside, and to come to find out they are a horrible person on the inside. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys have thought about today's case. Leave a comment down below. And see you guys in my next episode.